So again, we are at the Copenhagen waterfront or riverfront that used to be an industrial military zone, and now it's revived into a social and cultural hub of Copenhagen. And we just came from that side where the blocks and the Royal Danish Library is located, and now we are approaching Nike Credit office. And what's interesting with this side is not the Nike Credit building, although the extension, it was a really good one. The crystalline, we are approaching the project of Bjarke Ingels and JDS, or Julian Smith, when they were partners, and that's called the Copenhagen Bath something. So let me Google it because I forgot. I'm really bad with names, but it's called it is called the Copenhagen Harbor Bath. So you can actually access the installation or facility from that bridge, but I opted to walk this way so that I can have a view of that, of that access that connects to the playful architecture that Big and JDS introduced. So as you all know, probably decades ago, these waters are not swimmable at all, and it's contaminated by toxic and wastewater, and since the city government had an effort to revive it, so one of the proposals is to create a park, an extension of an existing park, and this becomes like an architecture folly that is actually usable, that functions like a beach for the locals to enjoy, since it also complements Amager Strand Park, which also functions like a beach, and the locals actually like to swim here because the water is already clean, and it's one of the like I said before, the few waters in the few rivers that are actually swimmable in Europe. So you can see people sunbathing in their swim. Camera died. I just replaced the battery, so I was going up this way. It's a wooden deck, and then it's an undulating form, and according to the designers, they are trying to mimic the cranes and the docks of the old harbor, so it alludes to that. So that's the concept of the entire architecture of this place. So it's pretty interesting because you can even slide down from there, very playful, and definitely if you're not careful, you might fall off to the water. And it's kind of cold now, and I'm sure for a cold bath this is not a problem, but if you're just walking around, you need to be very careful, although there are some railing provided. So I guess it's okay to have a railing like this, very traditional, when the overall design is so powerful. You really ignore this kind of detail already. But me, knowing me as a designer, I'm a bit anal with the detailing. I would try to find ways to make it more quieter, and then make the undulating form more expressive. So just like the other configurations, they have the amphitheater type of seating area so that people can hang out here, just like the one beside the blocks. And you can go down here, and if maybe in a busy day, I can imagine people sitting here and then jumping. And it's like maybe a set of pool, and because I read somewhere that there's an area for kids and an area for adults, and there's also an area, because it's a pretty big area, because you can see all the way there is part of this facility, and a mini open space here. That's the Nike Credit. These are Nike Credit offices, the Marriott Hotel, and they are actually around this architecture landmark. So and then the ramp going up can be an exercise thing, an exercise opportunity, and a lot of ramping thing, and making the flooring made of wood makes it more warm and inviting and more human, I would say, as compared to just concrete. So and it's hard wearing. We don't have a lot of rain here, so that's why they can afford to use a lot of wood, and and I actually love the how the Scandinavians makes use of wood in their designs. So it is repeated on the benches, so same materiality, but not necessarily the same form, because these are all rectilinear. These are all, and the others are just are very curvilinear in form. So so I can imagine having coffee or having a sandwich or even reading a book just by the river. And this is one way for the citizens to communicate with nature. And I can see a duck floating from afar. And then this is a pretty long deck, so I wonder if this is swimmable. But that area, I saw some a couple just came out of the water. And if I'm not mistaken, this is an extension. I could be wrong, but definitely it's part of the architecture. So it's quite sunny, but you don't feel the heat because it's October, so it's probably 10-15 degrees. So you have some floating decks, and I'm sure you can kayak around the area. So it's a really nice playground for the locals, even for tourists. So they have a storage for the kayaks, and then this elevated deck. So I also read somewhere that since these are divided into different pools for kids and for adults, so there's a maximum capacity. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 600 people per pool. So it's just that it's not clear to me which ones here are the actual pools. And also this one, you can see the ramp going down, opportunity for exercise if you go up and down, just like the guy earlier. It's, I don't know, maybe I read somewhere it's supposed to, that there's supposed to be a sauna here, but it says here kayak hotelet. I can see the word hotel. I don't know, maybe we just Google it later. So I don't know if you're supposed to stay inside. Maybe it's not the time of the year to swim in here. So there's another deck here, a floating deck there. So let's try to cross if it's accessible. And I have a feeling that it's a restaurant. It's called Green Island of Copenhagen. So by the name, I think it means it's like a garden, a floating garden. So hopefully we can access it. I don't know how strict they are, but we are going to try anyway. Oh no, it's not accessible. It's not accessible even on the other side, I would think. But yeah, it's like a mini cabin, and probably there's a restaurant or cafe that people can sit in the area. And this is the entirety of it, because I don't see anything there anymore. And so it's very hard for somebody like me to imagine that this is an option for the locals when they want to go to the beach during summer, probably because it's a harbor front, and you know that a river in the city is not that clean. But of course this is one of the cleanest rivers in Europe according to them, so I guess it's acceptable. But yeah, but I still can't imagine like having this in the Philippines, because our river is polluted. So I can imagine that a lot of people from my country will be surprised with this idea. So I just like the combination of the stairs and the ramp. I don't know if they're allowed to skateboard here, but definitely there's an exercise installation over there, the orange ones. you see a guy using the monkey bar. I don't know if you call it monkey bar. So yeah, going back to trying to contextualize this in the Philippines, we have the Pasig River, and then it's kind of polluted, and definitely it will take probably decades to clean it up so that it becomes swimmable. And yeah, it's still very hard for me to absorb that this is actually possible, and the Danes were able to do it in this regard. So hopefully, I would imagine, since we are a tropical country, we like the beaches, and plus that we have the most beautiful beaches in the world, and of course, if you build a facility something like this, if you build a facility like this, it's unthinkable that this will be better than the actual thing. So this is like a floating deck. You can see that it's moving, and since I cannot read the text, I would assume that it's like an indoor pool. I don't know if that water is part of the river, but I can imagine that it can be like a jacuzzi, but I could be wrong. There's really no way to find out, nobody to ask here. But right now it's a nice hangout area, so I'll be careful. Yeah, shit. So no lifeguards on duty. It's a dipping zone. Okay, so it doesn't really say if the temperature is different, but definitely it's not part. The water, I'm not sure if it's part of the river, but it's not that deep. Okay, so this is the swimming area. So and then there's a ladder going to the water, and this is the view around it. So yeah. Okay. So this is how the underside of the ramp looks like. It's really made of concrete, solid concrete, and then there's a floating deck again by this bridge, and it's actually there's no English label, but I would assume that it's a market because I can see some mussels, oysters, and then you have those tables. So I guess there are times wherein they sell something here. Yeah, so if I'm right, if that's the market, I don't know what this is. Oh, I know what this is, because when you slide from above, that's the slide, you swim here, and then this is where you go for safety to come back. All right, so this is how they structured it. So it's made of steel, and then the rest are just wooden decks. So I would assume that there are pillars underneath, and this is connected to those pillars. That L shape is connected to those pillars. Of course, the beauty, you can get away from it. It's actually a bit scary to walk on this without the railing, but I guess you get used to it. It's more beautiful without the railing, honestly. So that's how architecture can provide possibilities. So I hope you enjoy this tour. Pretty interesting architecture, and hopefully we can find more.